Angela would have to take me with her, and she would cut out of school or be smoking in the schoolyard, and then I would go home. Of course, I was 6 years younger than her, and I would tell my mother, Angela's smoking.
And listen, not everybody's going to agree with my decision. I can give a fuck less. You're in that position, it's you who got to face it, then you do what you need to do.
Little Changolini, he gets to the jail and
steal cars from Maryland and take them to Delaware to a chop shop.
The inside prison in Thailand, as well as what Victor Malarek, the reporter, did to get me out of there.
And I sat down and thought about it for the longest time. Okay, but once I made up my mind, it was about survival. I need to take care of my kids and take care of my family. And when a guy's not being loyal to you, how could you be loyal to him?
Welcome to Chattin with Staxx. Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Whitey Bulger. What's up, man?
What's up, Billy? What's up, bro?
Shit, I'm having a problem with the audio. Hold on. Something's going on with the audio. It's like sounds weird.
Can you hear me now?
Can you guys hear me out there? I can hear you, but it's like real staticky, man. It's crazy. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Staticky? I ain't got no fan on or nothing.
Nah, I it's static on my side, bro.
Can everybody hear you?
Shit, man. Everyone's saying that it's staticky as hell. Can you hear me, or is it staticky? Check. Can you hear me good?
Hold on 1 second, bro. Hold on.
The audio is good. Hold on, because it's all staticky on my end. Hold on 1 second, people.
Hey, can you hear me now, Billy?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's like it's staticky, man.
All right.
Hold on. Let me go out and come right back. I'll be right back. Hold up.
All right.
Yo. Can you hear me? Yo. I can't hear you. Yo. I can't hear you, bro, at all. Yo, go out and come back in, bro. Damn, why is this giving me a problem right now, man?
I can hear you, man. Can you hear me?
Oh, we're good. Now we're good.
All right. You can hear me, bro?
Now we're good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, bro.
You were stressing, man. Your face got red.
What
bro.
you were doing. Yeah, man. Hey, yo, it always happens. It's like shit has to happen like right at the moment when you're trying to do something, man. That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, that's how it goes. Life, man. It's life.
There's a crazy delay, but so yo, you want to tell the people what you were doing in the prison you were before you were cellmates with Whitey Bulger?
In 2013, I was charged by the federal government for weapons charges, 922G, illegal possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. I got 7 years, and I got sentenced to penitentiary because of my security level. So I got sent to Coleman, Florida, which is like central Florida, about 40 miles from Orlando, Leesburg, around the villages. So I got sent there to the United States Penitentiary, Coleman 1, for my first couple of years, due to some falling out with the crowd that I ran with at Coleman 1, which was the like I told you before, was the Matty McDonald, the Anthony Shea crowd from the movie The Town. Those guys that were robbing them armored cars and stuff in Massachusetts and Vermont and New Hampshire and stuff. They ran the car at the penitentiary that I got to when I got there. I was doing some stuff with some drugs, bringing some drugs in, some Suboxone. So I say drugs, but I don't want to sound like I was like Big Willie status and doing like major dope moves or whatever. I was just doing what most prison drugs these days is Suboxone trafficking. You know what I mean? Like I had the in on it, and at the time, it made it my popularity to McDonald, to the shot caller, a little bit more. I was worth more. You know what popularity is when you got something coming in, or you're a mule or whatever it is, you know. So my value went down, to say the least. And I was transferred next door to Coleman 2, to the it's considered a dropout penitentiary for a lot of people that are like in ex-gang members that can't go on other yards because there's automatic green light on them. And I wasn't a gang member at the time because I was running with the independent Boston guys, with the Irish guys, Matty and those guys. But where they had beef with me, it was green light on me from any of the Boston guys across the penitentiaries, the other 12 penitentiaries. So they sent me right next door to the 2. So when I got next door to the 2, yeah, you know how, well, at the end of the day, like at the end of the day, what it was really was I was about to go home, and most of those guys weren't ever going home. So they were like still stuck on that put in work shit, and like, pass the knife when they don't want to do something and have somebody else do it. But I was going home in like 2 years at that time. So I had no problem exiting stage left when it comes down to it. You know what I mean? Because I could go any other way. My paperwork's clean, clean to walk that yard. Still is clean today. But at the end of the day, it was them wanting me to do something that I didn't want to do. So I went next door to the 2, and I had family right there in Tampa Bay. My uncle and my grandmother and some cousins and stuff like that lived right down there. So my case manager said, "You want to just go right next door to the 2?" And there was a RDAP program, the drug treatment program, that was next door, and none of the other penitentiaries in this region, in the Eastern District, was offering that. And I wanted to do that before I came home too. I wanted to, try to find recovery of whatever sort I could. And at the same time, that RDAP program would bring you out of like the politics of the yard. You know what I mean? Like you're in programs all day instead of running around doing bullshit. So. But that all changed when I got to the 2, because I got off the short ride from the 1 next door, and I walked in the case manager's office. They meet with everybody that comes off the bus. When you get any kind of transport, you meet with case management and SIS when you get to the place you're going, because they want to find out your history and if you got any problems with anybody on the yard or whatnot. So I go in there and I sit down. And
let me ask you a question real quick, man.
Yep.
Did you know that Whitey Bulger was there, and when he got transferred into the prison, was it like well known throughout the prison?
Oh, absolutely. Bro, like there was a time when I was at Coleman 1 when all the Boston guys, like Matty and all those guys, because Matty's from Charlestown, Anthony Shea and all those guys from the town, from that movie The Town, which it was based on them, but the movie was far-fetched, as we'll get into with most movies on these mob shows are far-fetched, and they implicate a lot of things that didn't happen to try to, buff it up or whatnot. But the part of the story was like next door. Whitey was next door. Everybody knew Whitey was next door. And Matty would always say, "Look, if any of you fucking guys want to go next door and join the drug program, you can go over there and join the drug program and learn how to live your lives all good or whatnot. But you can't come back here." That was the rule. Once you go to a non-active yard in the feds, you can't go back to the active yard, because you've walked with informants and you've walked with, other undesirable people, like I told you about the Olympic situation, that Larry Nasser, you know what I mean? He was over there. So like there's a lot of people that in the eyes of penitentiary eyes, you can't even walk on the same yard as these people, and you can't go back active again. It's the difference between active and inactive. So, all those guys just say they knew Whitey was next door. He got transferred from Tucson, Arizona, which is another dropout penitentiary. There's 3 dropout penitentiaries. It's Tucson, Arizona, Terre Haute, Indiana, and United States Penitentiary Coleman 2. And Whitey got transferred from Tucson because the case manager in the unit he was in Tucson was an Irish girl from Boston who fell in love with the old guy and fucking held her under his, like, wanted autographs from him and all kinds of shit like that. So they boxed him up out in Tucson and sent him out to Coleman 2. So everybody knew at Coleman 1 that he was there. But it's like one of those things where there's quote unquote celebrities on the yard all the time, like BG, No Limit BG, all those guys he's on the yard with his crew, and they're always walking around with 4 or 5 cell phones in his cell all the time. So like there's infamous people. Leonard Peltier from Wounded Knee, from when the natives shot the FBI agents up for tried to like take over their reservation out in like Wounded Knee by where can't remember it's out west, it's a Sioux or whatever, but he famous back in the 70s or 80s when that happened. So like you hear of people, but Whitey Bulger is a whole nother element, especially like growing up as a New England boy, like my whole life, man. Like you hear Whitey Bulger and you hear these mob stories and everything like that, and then like as the story progressed, with him being on the run, that's when it really like the media took hold of it, and it like really became a story, because it really wasn't as big as it became when he was doing this shit in Saudi, right? When he was doing all this stuff in Boston, like yeah, Boston was scared, but you can ask a lot of youngsters nowadays, even if they knew who Whitey Bulger is, and most of them that are like younger than 30 have no clue who he is. But if you ask anybody our age or like our parents or anybody affiliated with anything in New England, everybody knows who Jimmy was. You know what I mean? So like everybody knew that he was next door. So they were like, yeah, Jimmy's next door. If you want to go back over there, for instance, Brockton that was in there, they called him Slim, and he did just that, what I suggested earlier. That was the one possibility why you could leave Coleman 1 to go to Coleman 2 was to go to that drug program. So long story is, Slim went over to the 2 and got into the drug program, and then 2 weeks after he was in the drug program, he got caught with a homemade needle made out of a pen sticking out of his arm in the drug program in his cell. So he went to the shoe, and like we all heard next door at the 1 that he got caught with the needle in his arm or whatever, and like everybody's like, so Maddie sent word over there, look, you can still hit Whitey and come back. Like all you got to do is hit Whitey and you can come back to the yard. You got 7 years left. Hit Bulger and you come back. And
yeah, but is that true though? Is that true? If you really do put in the work on that
hell
yard,
no.
can you go and walk on a regular
Hell
yard?
no.
Or is it bullshit, man?
They would have hit him as soon as he got back to the yard, Bill. Immediately. Like all those all those stories in there, and like you could gain your stature back. Like once you walked on the yard with him, like they could have never convinced my ass to go back. Hell nah, man. Once I was over at the 2, I was going home, and that's I was going do that. But nah, so we all knew it, and Slim didn't. He made the smart choice if he stayed in the box, and then I heard he got sent up to Indiana or something like that. But the thing about it is like when I got over there, I didn't think that I was going. First of all, it was a non-active yard, and I went over there with no gang affiliations whatsoever. And funny, I went to the non-active gang yard and became a gang member. I don't know how that works out, because I had no affiliation. Speaking out about when we spoke a couple weeks ago, like people get it twisted in the feds that they think the non-active gang yard, just because it's not on per gang time and per like district cars and all that it's not live. It's actually way more live than the 1. Way more live at the 1. Than the 1, because it's like everything is right there. There's no politicking at the 2. There's no like everybody standing out in the yard, with knives, 80 people on each side politicking like there is at Coleman 1. Over at the 2, it's like every man will go and like they'll run into somebody else's unit like a bunch of desperados, I went there, and when I got there, I found out I wasn't going to be able to go to the RDAP, which I planned on. And then I got another hit of information right at that same time that I found out. She's like, no, you're not going to the RDAP. You're not going to the drug program. She's like, you're going to M Unit. And I still didn't put 2 and 2 together because I had no clue where he was. And then she's like, you're going to M Unit. And she was like, and you might have heard who your cellie is. What's your cellie? You might have heard of your cellie before. And I was like, oh, man. I was thinking, like, right when she said that, I thought to myself, there's no fucking way. There's no way. And she's like, yeah. She's like, you've heard that James Whitey Bulger is on our yard, right, Mr. Bulger? And I was like, yeah, I've heard that. She was like, you're going to be living with him. And I was like, what? It was surreal. It really was. It was surreal to me, because it's like, I'm this kid from Connecticut and Maine, you know what I mean? Like and my criminal record is extensive, but anybody knows me that knows I've never been like on the Whitey Bulger shit. You know what I mean? I've been an addict my whole life, and I've been wild at parties, and I got a temper or whatnot, but I've never been on like no gang on the streets in New England. We've been partying and doing stupid shit. Yeah, but Whitey Bulger, So, and I was also, to be honest with you, I wasn't intimidated, like scared, because I had already heard that he had a heart attack and he was like in a wheelchair and everything now. So I wasn't like scared or nothing like that. But I was a little taken aback by the fact that his history and what he's known for, you know, his informant status with the FBI and whatnot. And it was like one of those things where I thought I was gonna be okay with it if I just like didn't talk to him or whatever. Cause like we were talking about, you don't get to pick your cellies, man. Like I kind of like bitched a little bit when Miss P told me, that's the caseworker. She told me when I was like, oh, come on, like there's no other cells you can put me in. And she's like, yeah, boy, there's other cells that I could put you in, but I'm not going to. You know what I mean? Like she's like, that's where you're going. You're a white boy. She was like, she Italian, Miss Pavasvinich. You know what I mean? She's an Italian. She's like, you're a white boy. You're from right out there where he's from. You guys will have all kinds of shit to talk about. You can talk about potatoes and baked beans and all kinds. She was talking shit. So I was like, I took my bedroll, bro, and I went to the M unit, north side of USP Coleman 2, and they put me in his cell. And I remember when I first went to the cell, I had my bedroll in my hands, and everybody already knew what cell I was going into. So like everybody in the unit was like watching me to see like who I was, what kind of time I was on. And they knew I was going to Jimmy's cell, so
All looking out the door and shit, watching you walk by.
they're like, if I get judged for like who I am or whatever, they're all thinking what's going on. I'm going there, you know what I mean? I'm going to live with James Bulger, you know what I mean? So I would go into the cell and I set my stuff down, and like right away, from the very start, that's one thing I could say about him. He was not standoffish at all. He tried to be my friend long before I was accepting of his like his courtesies, and his generosity was through the roof. Like he was a gentleman, man. He really was. He was a gentleman. That's gonna be a lot of stuff that that I've come to terms with myself is like I consider him a friend of a period of my life when there wasn't a lot of real people around me, man. There wasn't a lot of like people I could conversation with because of like, there are a lot of wild motherfuckers in there, man. There's a lot of dudes that just don't even care. All they do is walk around all day with knives and like, or there's the other guys that are like running the tickets and hustling and doing all that stuff. And I wasn't into that. And like at the time, that was my sanctuary, was my cell. And there's a lot of times we spent 4.5 months locked down together on a lockdown, in one lockdown, like playing cards, you know what I mean? Playing Run Jimmy.
What was it, 23 hours a day?
Well, it is if you choose to go outside, but Whitey
How
didn't
many
go
hour lockdown?
Yeah, because it'd be 24-1, but Whitey didn't go outside because he's in his wheelchair. And like the hour that I got to go out, he just stay in the cell when we were all locked down. But when the penitentiary was on a security lockdown, there was no 23-1. It was like if there was a race fight of any sort, they would lock the whole place down. And at one point, the Bloods and the GDs had a big going off or whatever. So we were locked down for 4.5 months, and we played gin rummy for days on end, man. And believe me when I tell you, that man could eat his fat cakes. He'd sit there in a pile of Snicker bar wrappers right next to his wheelchair. He didn't even care, telling stories the whole time, man. It was wild. Like I said, the first month and a half.
Yo, how did he? Did he ever tell you how he evaded capture for so many years?
He said the biggest thing for him, he said he changed his hair color for a long, long time. And he said he saw a couple composite photos that they did of him of like his aged process, the computer photos that they did of like degenerate stuff. And he said a couple times that he could have swore that they actually had a picture of him. That's how close they were. And he the biggest thing for him when he was out in Cali, he was out in like San Bernardino, if I remember correctly. Because like I said, this is all off like what he told me, what he talked about over through the years. That's him and Catherine right there. That's another thing I get into, man. For as hard as people accuse Jimmy of being, and as much of a brutal, just cold-blooded gangster, that woman right there was the opposite of his affection, man. For anybody that don't think that love can soften the heart, I've had many conversations, at least 2 or 3 dozen, where he would cry. I mean, literally cry like where it hurt my heart to see him cry like that because of how much he loved her and like what Catherine went through as a repercussion from like harboring him as a fugitive, and like he would say, them cocksuckers, kid, them cocksuckers just are only hurting her because she loved me. And like they came with like 5 years at first when they first sentenced her. And then towards the end, before I went home in 2018, Like before I went home, he went to the shoe for telling one of the little nurses that she didn't know who the fuck he was. You know, that he went on like a Jimmy rant because he was, man. He was self-righteous, man. I believe me when I tell you one thing. That man knew who the fuck he was. Like when Johnny Depp tried to come interview him, I was in the cell. Like when he heard from people that Johnny Depp wanted to come interview him, and he said, "Fuck that cocksucker kid. I'm not gonna have him come fucking interview me so he can lie about me." He said, "So he can lie better about me. I'm not gonna teach him who I am so he can lie about me. I want him to look fucking stupid." And that's how he was, man. But like at the end of the day, Catherine was the one thing that I could ever say that I heard him. That and his brother and his mother too. Like Billy Bulger, he's who, you know, as everybody well knows, if anybody knows anything about the Bulgers and Jimmy, that Billy was a senator of Massachusetts. You know what I mean? He was UMass president, and he was the dean of UMass for a while, and like some other like political stuff that he did. And so like just because Jimmy took the path that he took, you know what I mean, in terms of like being criminal and stuff like that, because he's been doing it from almost day one back in the day before he went to Alcatraz. But Billy went the other path. So like their level of intelligence within the family is evident through them both. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't just a fluke gangster. He's a fucking mastermind. And like I see like some of the things he used to talk about, and he was driven on emotion and on like intelligence, in which, you know, that can take gangs over, man. Like it's all about like when you have circumstances that line up with the opportunity. And he took the opportunity when he took Winter Hell over back in the day, and then everything that happened with him. But this is the thing, Bill, and this is the thing that I want to get into before we even get into any more of the show, and like what Jimmy said, and like the story Jimmy's told, and like we'll get into the stuff with Freddie and stuff like that. But like the biggest thing that I want to be understood, and this is how I came to terms with it, and why I was comfortable living with him, because there came a point where I could have moved out of his cell. Like I could have moved in with other people who I became associated with, and like that had open cells. Their cellie would go to the shoe or whatnot, whatever it is. I had the opportunity, or I could have bought my own cell or whatever it was. But I chose not to, because this is what James Bulger's ideology on his status as an informant. And this is how I look at it as well. Whatever anybody thinks a code that exists in terms of like if you get caught for something, or if a woman gets caught and she's got children, she gets caught up in a conspiracy or whatever like that, and they wave RICO in front of her face or whatnot, then whatever they do, it's ratting. It's ratting. And but how much levels of it can you justify? The woman with children is a lot more than the dude gets pulled over with a broken blinker and tells on a whole conspiracy of people. You know what I mean? That's a different level of rat. You know what I mean? But the way Jimmy explained it was, how many people have like heard of people telling on people? We all know people that have been informants on all kinds of different levels of cases, from murders to drugs to vandalism to everything. But how many people had a fucking FBI agent that was telling you everything that was like going on in the streets, man? When dudes was trying to make moves on Jimmy, when they was trying to hit Jimmy, he was told about it. And then when the feds were making a move on Jimmy and everything like that, he was told about it. So like by the time I got the perspective of it from him, an 89-year-old man, he regretted everything he ever did with them. Everything he ever did with them, he regretted. Because at the end of the day, it didn't do him a bit of good in the long run. It didn't do it, just like most informant situations don't do a fucking bit of good in the long run. You get hung out to dry one way or another. Either the prosecution's gonna hang you out to dry, the cops are gonna tell you some bullshit, you know what I mean? And or you're gonna end up in a situation where you lose your life like Jimmy Bulger did, and he ends up dying in prison anyway. So what was it worth it to him? But what I'm trying to say is he regretted the path that took him there. And if you would have took out the situation of his work with the FBI, his level, you know what I mean? Like he tarnished his reputation, and he spoke on that many times. He said everybody looks at me like nothing but a fucking rat, and he was like, and he's like, and he's a kid. He's like, I fucking never wore no wires on nobody. He's like, I never wore no fucking wires on nobody. He swore up and down it wasn't like what they made it out to be. Because I asked him, I was like, you know, why did you take the route you did? I was like, did they have you indicted on anything or anything like that before you did? He was like, no. He's like, honestly, it just started out as typical, usual conversation between neighborhood buddies. He was like, and then it progressed because he told me that they got shit on. And he was like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to use it to my advantage then. And I was like, so it ended up being like one of those things like we didn't talk about too much after he explained it to me because he had his position and I had mine. You know what I mean? But he was an 89-year-old man, and I wasn't about to start doing no dirty work for no Italian people from Providence from years ago. You know what I mean? I'm going
Yeah.
home for years. I didn't get.
Was he getting threats when you
Listen,
guys were in there? Was he getting threats from people like, "We're gonna get your ass, man. It's coming."
well, this is the thing. There's always these dudes that like no matter what, whether it was about Jimmy or not, whether it's about Whitey or not, there's always somebody who wants to make a name for themselves in the penitentiary. There's always somebody who wants to be tough. You know what I mean? Like no matter what. But the thing about it is, there wasn't really much toughness that existed left. There wasn't much possibility for toughness. Like, what are you going to do? Tip over an 89-year-old man in the wheelchair? Like, are you going to kill an 89-year-old man? Because at that point, penitentiary too, almost everybody's going home from there. You know what I mean? A lot of people are like, man, fuck it, whatever he did. Because there's way worse people running around that yard than Whitey, as far as I was concerned. Larry Nassar, the dude that molested all the girls from the United States Olympic team, you know what I mean? He was on that yard. I spit the biggest loogie I think has ever came out of my little body into that man's face. You know what I mean?
Good.
Like his face. Because at the end of the day, it was like, all right, I definitely don't respect what he does, and I didn't want to be like that dude that just walked up to him and did some shit, crazy shit, and get charged with something. You know what I mean? So what I did was I tried to provoke him. And and he wasn't going for it, man. He ran like as fast as he could, but with Whitey, there was a couple times, some AC dudes, some dudes that are affiliated with the Aryan Circle, one of the white supremacy gangs, and I think he was doing it for one of the other gangs that had some beef with back home stuff, some Italian stuff back home. But nah, nobody got him, man. Everybody's talked, man, for that as far as that goes with him. But he at the end of the day,
Hey, yo, who is this? Can you see the picture? Can you see the picture? Who is this? Who is that?
I think that's Janet, bro. That's Janet Ular. That is Whitey Bulger's. That's Whitey Bulger's. As far
Shit, I lost him, man. Damn, he must have pressed the wrong button. So, what he was going to say is, this is Whitey Bulger's, one of the jurors that was on the jury that found him guilty. And Whitey Bulger, was writing her from prison, and they became friends. So, he's going to come back in and tell me more about that. But it's crazy. He became friends with one of the jurors that convicted him and gave him life sentence. Can you imagine? And she went on the news. She wrote him letters, all kinds of things like that. He'll be back in here in 1 second. Just give me a minute. So this is the juror. I have the letters. I'm going to show you copies of the letters. Crazy, right? What's good? Stevie Bullets is in the house. Shout out to Stevie Bullets. Thank you, everybody who's watching the show tonight. I appreciate you. I don't know if his phone died. Maybe his phone died or something. So these pictures that I'm about to show you, these are from, all right, he's back. What's good, bro?
yeah, man, I dumped. I tried to plug my phone.
There's a delay, but
oh yeah,
there's a crazy delay, man. It's crazy, but it's all good. We'll work with it.
Doing that the whole time?
Yeah.
all right. Cool. Nah, so
I don't know why. It's all good, man.
Like I was saying, there was a couple guys that was hating on him, but it was, you know, who hated Whitey more than the inmates at USP2 was the cops, man. The fucking cops the cops, the COs, the cops hated Jimmy so bad because at the end of the day, it's the feds. He embarrassed the feds more than anybody. All the people that he was ratting on back in Boston and back in Providence and stuff, that's who, they was mad at him. They wanted to kill him and everything like that, but they didn't have their hands on him. The feds had their hands on him. He was in the Bureau of Prisons. That's the Department of Justice's punishing territory. So like all the cops, the case managers, they hated Jimmy. When he would go to medical, he had a couple kids that were like his little like hold his pocket boys, and like he would really he was so self-righteous. Like this dude would have the same little crowd standing around him all the time, and like they were starstruck with him, you know what I mean? And like he'd have people coming up and asking him for autographs, and like we'd be standing out there in the yard, and like I could come
Would there be people? Would there be people coming up to you because you're his cellmate and shit? Like, yo, can you talk to him for me? Blah blah blah.
Yeah. I'd have people ask like on the regular if they'd get him to sign something like a Father's Day card or a birthday card from one of their buddies or something like that. But he didn't like to do it at all. There was a couple people he like some memorable things that he signed was before the kid that used to push him to chow. For every one of the chows got out, the kid had a gray sweatsuit that he was going to wear home, and it was old and it was raggedy, real raggedy. And Jimmy said, "You're going to wear that thing home?" And the kid said, "Yeah." He said, he looked at me and he said, "Man," he said, "go to commissary and get him a jumpsuit, and I'm going to send him home with it." And I was like, all right, so which is typical. But then the morning the kid was going home, Jimmy took the sweatsuit and he signed his name with a black Sharpie all across the pants. And that kid, instead of putting the sweatsuit on, he threw it in a trash bag in a clear plastic bag, and he brought it home with him, and he sold it on eBay for $2,500.
Sold it.
He sold it
on Google.
Yeah, he went home and sold it on eBay for $2,500. The kid had no money to go home to. You know what I mean? He was going home to no money, and he went home and sold it on eBay for $2,500. So after Jimmy saw that, he knew that like.
Can you see this? What's this? To explain to the people what this is, man. I know it's crooked, but
that's a portrait of Alcatraz. That's a picture of Alcatraz that Jimmy sent me after I went home in 2000 I went home first in 2000 and late 18, like October of 18, and he was before he got. That's when he died, was 18. So it was like August that he sent me that one. That was like 3 months before he died. But that's a picture of Alcatraz, and he sent me like 6 or 7 pictures in an envelope, and on the back one of each of his pictures, he detailed like what the front of the picture was about. Like on that one, that's upside down.
My bad, it's upside down, people.
That's all right. That's all right, bro. That's all right.
I didn't have time, so you're gonna have to spin your phones upside down.
Yeah, right. I put it back up, and like you can see, at the very bottom, it says Jim Bulger. It says your friend Jim Bulger at the bottom, but at the what is our bottom, which is the top, it says Mr. Eyes, because that's my nickname. That was my nickname in the feds. He called me Mr. Eyes because I was always watching everything, and I always knew what the fuck was going on in the unit, no matter what. So Jimmy started calling me Mr. Eyes. And so on that, like I said, on that one, so he described what the Alcatraz was. And then like a couple letters that he sent me, I got that. And then the most interesting thing that I got probably is he didn't send this to me. He actually gave it to me before I left. And the day before I left, he handed me a manila envelope, and he said someday, he said, hold on to this until someday you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it to try to get yourself, set yourself up in life. He said, because we seen what the dude did with the sweatsuit. So he was like, just hold on to this till you need it. And it's a Boston Globe article. It's an article from the Boston Globe that they had written that Janet Ular, that the jury foreman for the one that you just showed the picture of, she wrote an article for the Boston Globe about the corruption of his trial, because the corruption of his trial was, it was precedent, dude. Like they let a guy go, like Flaherty goes with 27 bodies. He killed 27 people, and they let Jimmy go. Yeah, that thing right there that you're showing right now, that says at the very top of it, Jimmy wrote, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, my friend. And if you really think about it, man, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. But that's all about 3 pages from the back of it. So
true.
Yeah, I got that from him. And then it's crazy.
Dude, why am I getting so much damn feedback, bro? I'm getting so much feedback. Hold up, bro.
All right.
I don't know why. Every time you talk, I get feedback. Like,
is anybody else getting it?
Nah, I don't know. I am.
Huh.
Yo, when he talks, do you guys hear like crackling noise or no? What's this right here? Everyone's saying it sounds good. So
Yeah.
hey,
All right. It sucks for you, bro.
maybe it's my maybe it's probably my equipment, man. It is my equipment. It's my shitty equipment. I don't fucking
That's all
sense
right.
this shit.
Hey, we'll level up,
But
man. We'll level up.
so
We'll
tell
level
me
up.
about the juror. She came out and really advocated towards him being not guilty, right?
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, this woman had the gall to stand up, and because I commend her for this, and that's why I reached out to her after Jimmy died. Um, he got murdered. He got murdered in October of 2018. Um, we'll get into that a little bit more, but when he did, um, I was shocked by it, and I was saddened by it. I was going back in on a violation, and my federal supervised release had been violated, and I was here in Maine waiting to be held to get sent back to Brooklyn, and then essentially back to Coleman, where Jimmy wasn't at Coleman anymore. He had gone through the whole shipping process, and they sent him to Hazleton, where Geese was, where Freddie was, where he got murdered. But so like I reached out to Janet myself, and I was like, look, this is yeah, that's the dude right there. That's Freddie Geese right there, bro. He was a hitman for, I think he was Genovese. I'm not sure of his history too much, but I believe he was Genovese. He killed a whole bunch of people too. His brother as well is in the feds for life. They're both killers. But when they sent
Yep.
Jimmy to Hazleton, I'll get into the conspiracy behind that. But Janet, anyway, the thing with Janet was I reached out to her. I said who I was, and I wasn't like trying to advocate for him to like try to like change any like his public image of Jimmy or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, I still didn't agree with a lot of the stuff he did or still do. You know what I mean? But he is who he is, and I wasn't going to change none of it. But I just wanted to tell her that it was cool for looking out for him because the guy didn't have many people at the end. He really didn't. So and she wrote me back and she just said, what's right is right. And like, basically she said that the way that the government handled the case and the way that the judge handled the case was stacked. Like, even if he would have had every reasonable doubt in the world to add to that case, he was already guilty. So once they caught him, he was guilty, period. So, and then they held him in,
Yeah, they convicted him without him even being there, right?
Nah, they on some of the stuff, on some of the indictment, the Massachusetts stuff before the feds took it all, like because they were holding him. Remember, like the helicopter scene where he was actually still walking, and like he was walking out to the same joint that they was holding Aaron at out in Massachusetts. I can't remember the name of it, the state joint, but that's Whitey was like they're basically
The
from that point.
Bristol. It's
It
called
was
the Bristol
House of Correction.
It's called the Bristol jail. Yeah.
Yeah. Ironically enough, it's not our
Yeah.
Bristol, but it's the Bristol House of Corrections or something like that. Yeah. So she shout out to our Bristol, huh? Wow, craziness back home, huh, bro?
Yeah, man. With the police officers getting killed.
Wow, I saw that
getting
the other
killed.
day.
It's crazy out here now.
Man, when I saw that,
crazy, man.
And that's a thing too, man. That's like another thing that, like, deep down in my heart, that's how I know I'm different. Because 10 years ago, I think my response to when I saw what happened the other day, 15 years ago, my response, I think, would have been different than what it was the other day when I saw that, bro. And I think that's
mine would have been too.
Yeah,
mine would have been too.
I think that's digging deep down inside. Yeah, man, that's sad, man. That's somebody's husband, that's somebody's son. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and that's how, like, we get older and we take a look back at like who we were and who we are and who we're meant to be and stuff like that. And I see what happened back home, man. My heart goes out to those people's families, man. It really, really does. And like, I don't care what anybody thinks. If somebody like, if people are watching this thinking the penitentiary stories are cool and everything like that, like, I'm sharing you these stories as a person who I was when I was in those situations and what led me to be in penitentiaries and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, and that would have been the same person that would have been like, oh, haha, some shit happened to these officers. But now, man, like I said, Bill, it's right in our backyards, man. Like, and then just like Sandy Hook was just like 40 miles, 50 miles from home as well. So like, for anybody thinks that we're just from a little peaceful suburbia, Connecticut, yeah, yeah, it's not what you think it is. That we have mental illness, like
there was a car chase today, man. They crashed the car. There's a lot of cops blanketing the whole town now, so it's loaded with cops, and different people are I guess, I don't know, the people who are not doing the right shit are scrambling. You know what I'm saying?
Panic time. Everybody's panicking, man. They know the heat's gonna come down on them for what that idiot did, man. Yeah,
Yep.
and definitely shout out to everybody in Bristol who's going through it, man. Those officers' families, that's sad, man. My heart goes out to them, really. I looked at that dude's Facebook page, man. That dude that shot those officers, that dude's a fucking clown, bro. Like straight up clown. Like he's all like stupid about something about a Happy Meal toy for his kids, how like it was a unisex toy, and they asked him if they wanted a toy for a boy or a toy for a girl. And like his response, he like went on Facebook Live on it. And I just thought to myself, this is the kind of person that took a human life. You know what I mean? Somebody that had like good intentions. Like those were probably good officers. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Anyway.
No, I'm not in Minnesota no more, man. I'm back on the East Coast, my friend.
Yeah.
Can't do the Minnesota thing, man. It's too cold there. It's already fucking snowing there, probably. I'm good with that shit. I'll keep my ass right here.
We're gonna be going through it in Maine real soon, man. It's cold up here, but so anyway, like with Jimmy, the way it was,
you'll
man, we're gonna be going through it, man. We're gonna be cold,
you'll be trapped in there, man.
Yeah, it's all right.
So what was it like? And what did you hear about Whitey Bulger's last moments on this earth, man? What did you hear?
So like I said, after my time, I was released. When I went home from Whitey's cell, he gave me the manila with the Boston Globe article and whatnot. And then I got the other letter from him when I got home that I came back in on the violation. Well, all that time for like that 3 or 4 month period, he had gone to the shoe at USP Coleman 2. The whole conspiracy started, as this isn't even really known to the public until like right now. And I know for a fact and like for like why it happened. I was there when it happened. There was an SIS officer who was running United States Penitentiary Coleman 2. His last name is Shippy. Shippy. He's from Boston originally, and he's as Irish as they come. And he's the kind of Boston Irish guy like that, have the chewing tobacco in his cheek, and he'd have the real strong draw, like, and spitting when he talks to you and everything like that. And he hated Jimmy. He hated Jimmy like with a passion. So Jimmy would always go to medical and like argue with the nurses and everything like that. And he got into it with this nurse one day. And he's like I said, he said to her, you know, fuck you, bitch. You don't know who I am. I'm Jimmy Bulger and this and that. And the woman said, all right, well, you don't know who I am. And she sent him to the shoe. She had him sent to the shoe. So they kept him there for 6 months awaiting transfer. During that whole time, it goes to the transfer center in Texas where they in Grand Prairie or whatever it is, where they consider where they're sending everybody. Now, the typical, you know, the law is, everybody knows, once you're on an active yard and you go to an inactive yard, you cannot go back to an active yard. So your limitation is to Terre Haute, Indiana, or Tucson, Arizona, or to Coleman. And they bounce the guys who have been to dropouts to those 3. They have to have those 3 open for those guys. Tell me why this happened, Bill. They sent Jimmy from United States Penitentiary Coleman 2 to Hazleton, West Virginia, which is one of the fucking top 4 active penitentiaries in the United States. And so that the transfer went through.
It's full of gangs. It's full of crazy.
It's 100%
cars, everything.
gangs.
People getting stabbed and killed.
It's everything from Sureños from California to the Aryan Nation for white gangs. It's got Saw. It's got Bloods. All of it. It's got everything. It's live, super live. And that's where they sent Jimmy. And ironically enough, from all of the units at Hazleton, they sent him into Freddie Gee's unit. And rumor is from this kid, Nick, that I knew that was in the unit next door to Freddie, that's really good friends with Freddie because they ran in the same car, the Italian independent car. Because a lot of the Italian guys in the feds, they don't run really too much as Italian together because a lot of them are like dropouts, even if they're not dropouts. Because you know how it went down when Rico came. Like there wasn't too many people that stayed solid that were like beating their cases that weren't just doing life. You know what I mean? Like you got like John Gotti beat how many cases? You know what I mean? Before they finally got him, and then he laid it down like a gangster, a real gangster. You know what I mean? But look at Sammy Bravano, the fucking. He went out to Tucson. That's where he was. He hid out at Tucson. And then when he went home, he fucked around, stole some ecstasy, and went back. You know what I mean? So he didn't have enough sense. But at the end of the day, Freddie Geese is like I mean, you know
And
the
now
history.
he's worried about the drugs in America, man.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And now Sammy's worried about the drugs in America.
Yep.
Fucking
Yeah.
Schmiegel, man.
He's a
Get your
schmuck.
wet
He's a
ass,
schmuck as they
dog
come.
looking ass.
He tried to run.
He's a
He tried to
fuck.
run a bunch of college kids with him, bro. When he got out of the feds, he tried to have a whole crew of dudes out
They
in
need to
Tucson.
put Schmiegel's ass in Hazleton, man.
Yeah, Freddie would love to see him, bro. Freddie would love to see him. So how it happened was they knew he was going the next day. As soon as, like I said before, when you go into a penitentiary, they interview SIS and the case managers interview you, and you have the opportunity to check in right there. Like, you can refuse going to the yard. You could go right to the box. You could say, "Fuck that! I don't want to get killed. I'm going to the box." You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people do that. They're scared to go to the yard. They just lay it down. But Jimmy said, "All right, let's go. Walk. Take me where we're going." So they took him in his wheelchair, wheeled him to his unit, and put him in his cell. And everybody in there already knew. Freddie already knew. And the camera tape shows Freddie circling the block around Jimmy's cell. And he had a couple of people keeping eyes with him and stuff. There was two groups circling together. And Freddie went in there ahead of the other group with the padlock. And as he looked at Whitey, he said, "You know why I'm doing this?" Like whatever his first words were when he confronted Whitey. And Whitey looked up at him in the eyes and he said, "What the fuck are you waiting for? Let's get this over with." The dude said, Freddie looked at him and he's like, he told his brother, he wrote his brother 2 days after it happened, before he even got charged with it. He wrote his brother. That's part of the evidence of why he got charged with it, is because of the letter they confiscated to his brother out in California that said, "Man, Whitey went out like a fucking gangster." He looked at me and said, "What are you waiting for, kid?" So he went to the unit. He took his medicine. He knew he had it coming, but more than that, I think that was his coming to terms with not wanting to do it anymore, man. Who wants to be 92 years old? He was 92 when he got whacked. So, I mean, Freddie Geese can think he got stripes and he'll always be infamous for killing Jimmy, but at the end of the day, he killed a 92-year-old man in a wheelchair. The dude looked him in his face. So he still went out like
alleged.
a gangster.
Gianni says it's all alleged.
Yeah. He didn't die. He didn't die in
alleged.
some protective custody cell. He didn't die old in some protective custody cell, dying old of dementia, or even like some notorious people before him went out, like Al Capone. You know what I mean? He didn't let his mind get him. He said, "Fuck it. If you're gonna take me, let's go." So, but that was Jimmy, man, and that
died like a true
old school gangster,
man.
Like,
he took the gangster way out, bro.
And he could have made other choices, and his story would have been a little bit different. But at the end of the day, he was who he was, player. It's one of those things. So, but listen, man, keep
that's what happens, man, and
keep your feelers out there, because for the exact reason that Jimmy handed me that manila envelope, and for the exact reason that he sent me those things autographed and with stories on them and stuff that are I mean, at the end of the day, a man's signature is worth one thing, but when that man is dead, and when it's personalized stuff from like Alcatraz where he was at, and I've got one of some like fishing nets from Alcatraz. Where one thing about Jimmy Bulger, he was very, very intelligent. So like when he writes stories, and like if you look at his penmanship, his cursive is pristine. It really is. His old school penmanship, like the old English penmanship, like right there, it's upside down, but you see James Bulger at the upside down part, and then like his Alcatraz number. And there's multiple
1428 Ace Z.
Yeah, AZ Alcatraz. Yep. But he
yeah,
got
man.
That. So like for the interest of all that, I'm at a point in life now where I just got married last year. I settled my life all the way down, and because I've been to a penitentiary one too many times in my life. Living we learn. I've had enough. I live different today. I make different choices, and the choices I make today, I'd never end up meeting Whitey if he was still alive in my future from today, but. It's we live and we learn. So I got these things, and for the reasons he gave them to me, I'm willing to open up discussions with anybody who's interested in any real life Whitey memorabilia and stories to go with it, and whatever else. We'll talk it out, get it graded and authenticated, whatever anybody wants to do, and we can move forward. So keep your eyes open for me, will you?
Definitely, man.
Right,
I'm gonna have you on again, and we're gonna have more stories. We got mad other things that we gotta cover, man. We're just getting started.
For sure.
Make sure everyone hits the like, subscribe, and notification bell. Yo, you want to give anyone a shout out before we go, man?
Listen, everybody in my life these days, man, it's crazy because as many people as I know and as many people as I could shout out, my circle isn't really a circle anymore. My circle's a dot, man. I got my wife, who's an amazing inspiration to my new choices, man, and you know, I got my mom. Everybody got to shout their mom out, but I got some friends, my boss, my friend Alan, some real close people to me, man. Some people who help calm the little boy down when he wants to have a tantrum deep down inside. You know what I mean? But I got some good people in my life nowadays, man. I'm proud of you, Bill, man. I'm good seeing you on this, and like we definitely got some more work to do. People can tune in. We got some real deep stories, some real crazy stuff. But
Definitely, man. I thank you for coming on, man. I'm just glad to see that you're out and doing the right thing, man.
for sure, man.
It makes me feel good to see other people doing the right thing, man.
Hell
But
yeah,
yeah,
man.
man, I definitely look forward to the future, and make sure you guys hit the like button. Hit the like button, man.
Like
and if you don't like the show, kick
like this
rocks,
show.
man.
If you didn't like it, go get it
All right,
somewhere
man.
else.
Thank you, bro.
All right, bro. Love you, man.
Damn right. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Till next time. Thanks, bro.
Peace, bro.
See you soon, man.
I love you, homie.